for change, pressure for change, all sorts of rather wacky ideas, some of which work, some of which we know won't work, but we've got to explore them anyway. And it's a lot of work. The problem is, of course, the economic situation also affects the Institute. We're a commercially run body, and to that extent, we suffer as well when in a downturn. And we have to watch the pennies and sort our own finances out. So we're not immune to any of that. And you'll know from other professional bodies that they've had very significantly greater financial challenges than we so far exposed ourselves to. But we need to be careful, and we need to make sure that in doing all of this work, we don't overstretch our own resources, because that would be a disaster for everyone. Just looking down the list, I mean, obviously, most of it will be well known to you. The last two, I suppose, are my specialism, although other valuers will probably disagree. Valuation is a big issue, I think, now across the board. My own firm does a lot of public sector valuations. And one of the things we're struggling with at the moment is what is a public sector building, now redundant, actually worth as a public sector building? Answer, not a lot. It may have alternative use maybe, but of course it hasn't got planning consent for that, or any other type of consent for that, and there's no money around to redevelop it anyway. So what's it worth? And of course when you go back to the authorities concerned and put that nominal or nil value and figure out, so, well, 5 years ago we spent 10 million on this. So what? It's worth it what now? And the problem is that's a culture shock. The private sector has dealt with that in their balance sheets. The public sector is getting grappling with it. And it is a shock for some of them because, of course, they all keep accounts. And their asset values are plummeting by the day in relation to closing buildings. Every time they close a building, that asset more or less disappears off the balance sheet. European valuation standards is quite important. Whether we like it or not, we are in Europe. And in the UK, whilst we are under the aegis by and large of the RICS, which Charles Surveyor's Red Book of valuation standards, the European valuation standards also live by, because we're all bound by European law. By and large, in the hierarchy of things, we have international valuation standards, which are very strategic, very high level, not much detail, and then you have the regional standard setters, like the European valuation standards together, more later, and the RICS. Bit of tension between the various groups, bit of territorial issues about who should be doing what and why they're doing it, but it's a good time. At the end of the day, it's all about making sure there's comparability across Europe, so that, for example, we have cross-border investment, and there's been quite a lot of investment in Scotland, but a German bank investing in a property in Aberdeen can be sure that when he gets a report on that property, it's comparable in terms of quality and input to that report that he might get in Dusseldorf or Belgium or Paris or anywhere else. So that he can make decisions, informed decisions about what he's doing. And those standards are all about raising that quality, which in some countries is long overdue. So, we've got the challenges, the future revenues, rating benefits valuation, and of course, as I said, all of those are under change and threat in various forms or other. We've got a lot of public sector partners, and we've increasingly got a lot of private sector partners. Not only those who are partner authorities and have contract work with those authorities or outsourced, but also those who are doing a lot of work independently but for the public sector are now taking a real interest in this and saying there are some issues here that we need to solve together rather than try and deal with the outfall on our own. And we've been looking at the structure of the Institute to meet these challenges because we need an organisation that's fit for purpose. And we have discussed quite a lot of changes, and quite a lot of changes already taken place. We've had a couple of strategy days which have led to us focusing on ourselves and deciding what we want to be, how big we want to be, where we want to go and what we want to do. And that is an ongoing process, and change will become obvious as we go through the next couple of years. We started with the new headquarters. Obviously we own the freehold, fee simple in your language up here, of the old Gavin Street headquarters, which was a good asset to have, but not fit for purpose as a modern office building. Nice old house, but the limitations were a nice old house. We've now got good offices in Holborn. If you've not been there yet, you go to London, do pop in. They'll always make a cup of tea. But useful, good training rooms, good setup, and now a real professional institute rocking and rolling. We've got all the facilities there to do it. Policy and resources. I've been looking at the governance structure of the institute. We currently have a council, as you know. Should that be a management board, a smaller management board? Is council unwieldy? It only meets 3 or 4 times a year. Is that responsive enough to the amount of change that we need to grapple with? Being of a certain size, what tends to happen is you don't necessarily get agreement, and therefore something is put off to the next meeting, which is a disaster really, because there's no forward progress for months, or in some cases years. Maybe management board will be more focused. Is that instead of council, or is that in addition to council? Should it be drawn from council members or independent council members? And I take a view, and some of my colleagues don't necessarily share this, that council is a huge technical resource. Most of our council members are experts in their own field. And that technical resource should be used as a technical resource. They shouldn't necessarily be used for the domestic administration of IRRV as a company or as an entity. Because at the end of the day, that's a management of a corporate body. That's not about what council members are good at, which is their technical expertise. We need to make more use of council in the technical ability rather than domestic management of the institute. We've also looked at the committees, which necessarily, because of the business at hand, are meeting on a different cycle to council, because there's too much business to just confine it to the day of council. We shortened the council day as well to avoid a lot of expense, overnight costs and things like that, so there's even less time on the day of the council meeting to run committees. So the committees are now meeting ad hoc when they need to, on a structured basis, so that we can deal with the agenda, and council is more meaningful because the committees can report back real progress to council meetings. That's also taking the form of tele and video meetings, and of course that's happening in the faculty boards as well. And David's talked about new technology, and that has to be the way to go in terms of travelling time out of the office, and certainly employers' attitude now to what I would call extracurricular activity, because most of them are retrenching to core business, and they can't afford their staff to go off and do these things in a way that perhaps they might have tolerated historically. And we're going to have written reports to the board, which obviously then make life a lot easier and a lot shorter in meetings themselves. Faculties. A lot of debate about faculties, about fit for purpose, whether they duplicate committees or not, whether they need to be opened up, more independence. The big issue here is rebranding. And you may have seen some of this, or you may see it in the future. This is not, and never will be, under my presidency anyway, an attempt to split the institute. That's not what it's about. Quite the opposite. It's about making the impacts of the institute more relevant to a wider audience. If I just say valuation for a moment. Valuation within the IRRV is perceived by the wider valuation professionals as being confined to the public sector. Oh, the IRRV, that's a rating body. It deals with rating valuation. It deals with the public sector. It doesn't really deal with anything else. Why should I be a member of that? I don't do it with any of that work. That couldn't be further from the truth. We do a lot more broader stuff in valuation than that, deliberately. And all our work in Europe is much broader than that. And most of the people we've talked to in some of the big firms who are not members said, what is your hurdle to joining the IRRV? And they said, well, what's in the name? We don't want to join a rating body. We don't do rating. Well, what about if we were the Institute of Valuation under the umbrella of the IRRV? Oh yeah, we join that, no problem at all. Don't change what we do, but it's perception of the outside world. It's the brand. And we're looking at that to see whether there's an easy, quick way of helping us to a wider market, and therefore, frankly, more income, more members, which is where we need to be. So it's a refocus